Like, hello everyone. Hello, a long time no see. Okay, hello to all the GoSG community members. Yeah, welcome to the Google Developer Space channel. Yeah, so has been a while. Yeah, and really happy to see everyone again. Yeah, so we can see that Abel, Take Chu, and Shuin is here. Yeah, so really excited to host you guys. Yeah, so let's to see more events coming up from you guys. Yeah. So before we begin, right? So briefly introduce who we are and what we do. So Google Developer Space is a platform for developers and startup around the region to learn, connect, engage, and be inspired. So I'm Lawrence from the Google Developer Relations team. So as part of the developer relations team, we aim to empower, connect the community to our people, programs, network, and technologies, be in person or online like tonight. So without further ado, I'll pass the stage over to Abel and Dick Jun.
Thank
Hello.
you,
Yeah,
Lawrence.
so
Hello,
happy to see you
guys.
guys.
Hello. Yeah, and thanks, Rin, for today.
You're welcome.
Attending. Yeah, and then with Abel here for the co-organizer. We have another co-organizer, Stanley, who's away today, so he can't join us this evening. Yeah, and yes, it's been a while since we had the last Golang meetup, and thank you for those who are tuning in from YouTube.
It was
And
last year or January? I
last
can't
year,
remember.
last
right,
year,
last
last
year.
year. Yeah.
Wow,
Last
it's
year
been some
was
time.
December, yeah, that's our last one. Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
There's a slight change of schedule today. We have Shirin instead of the original speaker, and we have Shirin to talk about and as a panel discussion among the three of us to on Go
Stick around.
1.18. As you know, we just launched a few weeks ago, and we can have a panel or fireside chat about this topic, and we welcome uh, any questions from the community and to discuss and chat about this new version, right? Yeah.
Stick
Okay.
around. It'll be an interesting discussion, right?
Yeah. All right.
A little bit
So
of
yeah,
background. We might as well get started. A little bit
yeah.
of background about myself. My name is Yu Yin. My family name is Lo. I'm one of those old people. Look at my gray hair. Who have been using Go for a long time, since version 0.9, pre 1.0. Um, and when I first saw Go, by the way, before Go, I came from the Ruby world. Um, when I first saw Go, I said, "Yucks! What a horrible language!" You don't expect to hear that in a Go meetup, right? Yucks! What a
Mm,
horrible language! It's got this funny inverted C declaration syntax, right? Instead of I in this int I or something like that, it's upside down. Yeah, it's just non-conventional. And I said, "Nah, this is not the language for me." So I put it aside. That was at 0.9. It wasn't very polished then. Then 1.0 came around and they said something very interesting that really perked my interest. Backward compatibility, right? They guarantee that as long as you have 1.0 code or version 1 code, your code is guaranteed to be backward compatible. Now, I came from Ruby and my framework was Rails, and Rails was growing very fast and it broke backward compatibly all the time. And this is a language that offered backward compatibility. And that was version 1. I still didn't like it, but I decided to take a second look. Then I found Go's most attractive feature to me, the most attractive feature at 1.0, structural typing. Very complicated sentence. Essentially, structural typing is implicit interfaces, uh, not implied, implemented interfaces. You can implement an interface in Go, and you don't have to declare implements. It will just work, right? So the IO package, for example, has a format um, write, and it just takes a stream of bytes and a handle, right? You can format print line to a database if you want to. That's the power of structural typing and implicitly defined interfaces. Now, everybody likes to talk about Go routines. Yes, it is extremely powerful. Go routines and the select statement, extremely powerful. And I use that a lot. But my favorite feature in Go, interfaces. Uh, it implemented interfaces like no other. What do you think, Teck Chun? What's your favorite
Yeah.
feature in Go?
I would think is interfaces as well. Yes, I agree. It's a very different way lah from traditional old language way of doing interfaces. So I think it gets a bit of time to get used to how to cognitively interpret the
Correct.
syntax. Yeah, correct. But I think it's elegant after you get used to it. Yeah.
After you get used to it, and
Mm,
this is where Go has this split personality for me.
mm,
Go is a very simple language, right?
mm,
People coming in from Python will appreciate that Go is a very simple language. I think it's what, 20 plus keywords and that's it, right?
mm,
However, some of the concepts are very advanced, like structural typing and implicitly implemented interfaces. And that took me a long time to appreciate, a long time. If you come from the Java world, the interfaces are huge. You can have many,
mm,
many properties and many, many methods.
mm.
You know, Teck Chun, interfaces in Go, one or two methods. That's it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Correct.
There's a stringer interface with a string method, right?
Mm,
And the
That's it.
most famous one, the reader,
Yeah,
reader
reader
writer.
interface, reader writer interface. That's right. You can reader writer just one or two
Everything.
methods. Yeah, and then there's a read closer with just additional method to close. Right. So is that your favorite method as well, Abel?
For me,
Feature of Go.
okay, I think the interfaces is definitely a big plus. Like for example, the reader method, right? If you really follow how Golang wants you to do it and you really implement it, you do get a lot of additional features on top of that. Because a lot of standard library stuff, right, they build on top of the reader. Like maybe the
Yes.
buffered reader, you read until a certain buffer and then you error out, that kind of things. So if you build your like future code on it, right? Like I don't read to a file, I read to something else. You can use this kind of like helper methods to enhance your code like naturally, easily.
Yeah.
But I think for me, right, like after you have code running out in the like going out in production and running very frequently, right, the most important feature is definitely, as you mentioned, backwards compatibility. I
Mm.
think one thing, I mean, I got to work on JavaScript nowadays, so one thing that kind of like it's kind of gets on my nerve sometimes is that you go from Node 12 to Node 14, Node 14 to Node 16. Then it isn't like you just change the version number or change the Docker image needed to build it and then you're done.
It breaks things.
Yeah, so much.
It breaks things.
It breaks
But
things.
in Go, I just upgraded my Docker instance from Go 117 to Go 118. It was a very boring
No
upgrade.
problem. It was
No
a very,
problem.
I
No
love
excitement.
boring upgrades.
It was an extremely boring upgrade, right? What
That
other
is
language
fantastic.
can give you that super duper feature? Right?
mm,
No
Yeah, I had
excitement.
so much problems. Like for example, from 12 to 14, right? For Node. Then
mm,
I did an upgrade, and then isn't just the main Node that has problems, right? It's all the libraries and everything, all your dependencies that also have problems breaking on Node 14. I'm like,
mm,
oh my goodness. But
Oh,
mm,
I
by
think,
the way, I like to open up this discussion to everybody who attends. So
hmm,
please, if you have any comment or reaction or question, just type it in. There is a delay, I have to warn you, between what Teck Chun, Abel, myself interact with and the
yeah,
comments coming in. But we will catch up. Please, everybody, please feel free to join in this join into this discussion.
yep,
So
yep.
backward compatibility, yes, I definitely agree. Number one feature, right? But what's all this hype about 1.18? Can you tell us more, Abel?
Okay, so
Go
okay, just from the
1.18.
release notes, the biggest thing that everybody in Go has been looking forward to and hoping that it'll happen. In fact, there's so much comments about it. that there have been a few Gopher cons that are talking about it. Generics release. It has been in development for like a year plus, I think, and it's been in discussion in
a
at
year.
least 2 Gopher cons over 2 years. Like I think it was first mentioned 2 years ago on the GopherCon that they're talking about generics. Then last year they had more details coming out about generics, about how it can be implemented safely and everything. And now Go 18 has finally released it. So have you played around with it, Siwin?
Yes, I have, but I'd like to ask Teck Chun, why do you think it's taken so long for Go to implement generics?
I mean, if you want to adhere to the backward compatibility principle, and you also want to have a bit more feedback from the community, I think it's worth the wait, lah. So I think that that's
Yes.
really a lot of the considerations, lah. Yeah.
I fully agree. Now, Go, like I said, I hated Go at first, but now I love Go. And the reason why I love Go is that the maintainers are very, very careful. The maintainers of the Go language are extremely careful. They work very hard at keeping features out, not grabbing features into the language. They work very hard at keeping the language simple and usable. So the reason why I felt generics took such a long time was there was no efficient backward compatible way to easily implement it when they first launched 1.0. But that wasn't the main reason. The main reason was they come up with this process where they explain the problem to the community and they want people to really use it in real situations, right? And they adjust the thinking, and only when they are really confident that it's stable and it is generally usable for many use cases will they incorporate it in the language. And I'm glad that they waited, because I, for one, when I first started using Go, I said, what kind of garbage language is this? It doesn't even have generics, right? If I have a function that takes in an integer, I have to write the same version of the function for floats. I have to write the same version of the function for any special object type, right? What kind of garbage language is it? And strangely enough, I didn't miss generics after my initial rant, right? I found that most of my code would just be statically typed to lock to that particular type, and the static typing actually helped me be a better programmer, be a better coder, because it gave me more discipline, right? But I still miss generics. Let me tell you why. Before joining Zendit, by the way, Zendit is hiring. Before joining Zendit, I worked in I have to do a bit of commercial, right? I worked in the broadcast domain, right? And in the broadcast domain, it's a real-time business. Broadcast news is real-time, right? And what makes money in broadcast domain is commercials, advertisements, right? And I wanted to make sure that advertisements are queued up, ready to go at a moment's notice, right? If some advertisement, for example, pulled out, I need to have a backup advertisement to step in at a moment's notice. Now, the problem is people manage this queue. They will put in different kinds of advertisements, and sometimes they are repeated, right? I want to have a priority set. A set by mathematics terms is a group of objects with unique elements. There's no duplicates. That is a set. Because I don't want the two Coca-Cola, exactly the same Coca-Cola advertisements to be broadcast one after the other. Not only will it look bad, my company will get into trouble, right? So I needed a set, but not only a set, a priority set. Coca-Cola may pay more money than Pepsi. By the way, I'm not sponsored by neither Coca-Cola or Pepsi. These are just generic names. So if Coca-Cola or brand A, I won't use those trade names. If brand A pays more money than brand B, it has a higher priority for air because it will make more money, right? So I needed a priority set. Now, if you look at the Go standard library, there is a priority queue. It's called a heap. It's there. You can use it, right? But there was no priority set. So I could modify the priority heap for priority set, but then I need to do it for integers. I need to do it for floats. I need to do it for strings. I need to do it for every type which I define. That is why I was looking forward to generics. And 1.18 landed on my computer just a couple of days ago. It was on the weekend. I decided to upgrade my Docker image to 1.18. I looked at the README and I said, this is standard, huh? You will hear from me all the time. What garbage is this? You've messed up this beautiful syntax. What garbage is this? Now you got type constraints and all that. Yeah, when I look at it, and the more I look at it, hey, it makes sense. I just have to put in square brackets and put in the type constraints and the magic 3 letters, A, N, Y, any, right? And freedom, right? Of course, that's only the beginning of the story. There are many flies in the ointment. Have you detected any flies in the ointment, Teck Chun?
I haven't used generic, so I can't comment. So
Okay.
yeah, so I guess it's also about some trade-offs lah. Every new language, right? So it's sometimes it's compiled time polymorphism, right? In a way, generic. So
Wow,
in a way, when
really,
you read code,
really
there's more
big
explicit.
language, Teck Chun. Compile time polymorphism.
So when you look at things that's more explicitly declared, sometimes it's easier to infer what you're trying to do, right? Yeah. So when you do more generic codes, if you're not careful, then you can impacts on the readability. I think there's some trade-offs in certain areas. So I think that's just something that we just need to watch out for.
In my view, the introduction of generics has made Go slightly less readable, but just slightly less readable. I mean, Go anybody can read a Go function. It's very easy, it's intuitive. Some people may have some difficulty with the forward brackets for a Go method, right? That is quite unusual syntax. For people like you and me and Abel, it's natural. You've seen it so many times. But for somebody who's not used to it, a Go method looks a bit strange. And then what are those uppercase and lowercase characters? Uppercase for public, lowercase for private, right? It has no private keyword, no public keyword. It's got these idiosyncrasies. But they thought really long and hard. And for the price of funny square brackets for type constraints, they introduced generics. What's your reaction, Abel? Has it become less readable?
Well, honestly, I haven't really touched generics yet. So as I mentioned, I'm still like stuck on 17. And I think I might be there for a short while more until I upgrade. But the way I see it, there are a lot of... Okay, so one thing is... one thing the Go teams did tell us to be careful, right, is that be very certain where you want to use it, be very certain of how you want to use it. Don't just see wherever you can use generics and then just stamp generics wherever it is. You're going to create a lot of problems for yourself or for whoever's maintaining your code in the future. So that's one thing you have to be very careful of.
Extremely good advice, Abel. Thank you.
So for me, right, if I want to use it, I really need to know what's the best purpose where I should use it before I really go and pepper it all over the code. I don't want to create problems for myself or someone else in the future.
Very, very good advice. That is the reason why I started this panel discussion, fireside chat, to say that my favorite feature is interfaces and not Go routines, right? Everybody was so excited about Go routines when it first came out. So Go routine here, Go routine there, Go routine everywhere. And if you use a feature for the sake of using that feature, you end up messing up your code, honestly. I had a reason to use generics. I have not implemented it in production yet. I will think long and hard before I implement it in production, but it is a very useful feature if and when you need it, right? Exactly like Go routines, right? Go routines is not for everybody. Most of our code can be very simple, single line, single threaded code, mainline code, without the
Yeah.
need for Go routines. Yeah,
Mm.
agree, actually, right?
Yeah, agree. Yeah, only use it when you need it. Yeah, agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is your most used feature in Go for production use, Teck Chun?
Well, writing as a middleware handler, lah. I mean, that's
Oh,
really
yeah.
like the most common use case, right? Yeah. So yeah, helper functions handler. So mostly from a web perspective, right? Yeah, just a web handler as a middleware handler. I think there's a easy to understand pattern also. Yeah, and it's easy to read the code. Yeah, what you're trying to
Yeah,
do for each of your
Mm.
methods, for example. Yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
Okay, we have a
We,
question. We have a
yeah.
comment. Actually, a question
Good.
from Arash.
Yeah,
Mm.
sure.
So, yep, here we go.
Isn't the reason of being minor upgrades 117 and 118 make it backwards compatible? Yes, of course. All version 1 Go code is backward compatible. Now, of
Mm.
course, let's consider the specific instance of 1.18. 1.17 doesn't have those square brackets for type assertions for generics, right? So if you try to use type assertions, not type assertions, type constraints for generics in 1.17, it will not work. But any code that has been used in 1.17 will flawlessly work in 1.18. That's what it means. Would this be the case for Go 2? No, 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 no. Uh, semantic versioning, not semantic typing, semantic versioning. I sincerely hope that Go goes to 1.9999 or something like that. In other words, version 9999 is compatible with version 1.0. But the moment you toggle to Go.2,
Go
right?
to.
All, yeah, Go, not the Go.2, Go 2.0 and above,
Mm.
all bets are off, right?
Mm.
So there's a lot of talk in the community that Go 2 will never come. And I hope it never comes because I've got lots and lots of code in production that I want to maintain.
Mm.
However,
Hmm.
if the day does come that Go.2 is here, which will break backward compatibility, will break it, right? The people who wrote Go has a way around it. Between Go 0.9 and Go 1.0, 1.0 broke backward compatibility with 0.9. You know how they fixed it? Go format. Go format, right? Um, Go format is a feature that all of us love and all of us hate at the same time. It forces us to use tabs. Some of us like to use four spaces. Forces us to use tabs. But you grumble for 5 seconds and then you get over it, right? Because of Go format, we can write. Not we. I'm not smart enough to write it. The authors of Go can write a porting routine to port all 1.1.x code to 2.x
Hmm.
with Go format because the format of Go code is well understood. Yeah. So thank you for that comment and question and helping us build the Go community because these are the very powerful features of Go. And all the other modern languages started to introduce something like Go format as well. I played around with Flutter. They have got Dart format, all right, and they format the code in a well understood way.
Mm.
Right. Teck Chun or Abel, you want to contribute to that question?
Okay, just to add on, there's a reply to just now what you mentioned about Go 1.0 to 2.0, the changes. So there's a reply to that. So he hopes it doesn't ever break. Same as you, same as you.
Yes, yes,
Doesn't break
yes.
compatibility. Otherwise, yeah, I think all of us will have problems maintaining our systems in production.
No, but if there
Yeah.
really is a reason to break backward compatibility, Go format is a way. Go okay. The Go people say Go format in a very funny way. Go from
Yeah.
FMT. Go from.
Mm.
Right. That is our backdoor or way out around that problem. Right. Okay. Do we have any further questions? If not, let's continue.
We do.
Yeah,
We have
I think
comments
there
though.
is. There's
Okay,
one
let's go ahead.
from Johnson, yeah, which is an interesting thing to talk about. Yeah. Not really a question, but more of a comment. Go is readable
Okay, I've
only if
posted the
you use
question up.
idiomatic Go, right? Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. Donaldson, I feel your pain. I feel your pain so much.
Have you
Have you
encountered
seen
this?
Ruby like Go code?
Be like go.
Have you?
Okay, I can go on forever, but
Mm.
do you feel that Donaldson's pain, Teck Chun or Abel? You want to comment on this first?
I've seen Java like go. That's even
Yeah,
scarier.
I've seen that more. I'm not a Ruby person, so I can't comment. But
Ruby is at least
Java
more
like
like
Go.
readable, you know. At least Ruby use like is whatever has
Yeah.
whatever. Okay, kind of like okay, I can get that. But if you go
Mm.
Java, it's like woo.
Yeah. I have seen Go code written like Java. I have seen Go code written like Python. I've seen Go code written like Ruby, and they feel wrong. They basically just feel wrong,
Mm.
and it grates on your nerves.
Mm.
I'll give you one instance. In Java, when you have the identifier ID, yeah, it's a capital I and lowercase d.
Mm.
But the Go linter in Java is capital I and lowercase d, right? But in the Go linter, the really old, no longer maintained, but still in the library linter, the correct way to specify ID is capital I, capital D
Mm.
for
Mm.
identifier, right?
Mm.
This grates on my nerves so much, right? Because one, and I agree with Donaldson, one of the reasons why Go code is so attractive is it is so readable if you follow the conventions. Now,
Mm.
Go, like the uppercase for public, lowercase for private, right? People follow those conventions automatically because if you want to have exported or exposed for public function, you must make it uppercase. There's not a
Mm.
styling. It's not a styling thing. It's a must kind of thing,
Yeah.
right? But in terms of variable naming, Go doesn't tie your hands in terms of variable naming. So if you write Go in a Ruby way, right, or you write Go in a functional language way, Go is not a functional language. Uh, I tried to make Go work like a functional language with map reduce. It just read really badly. It just read really badly. Um, just use the for loop. Just use the for loop instead of map reduce, right? Um, if you try using map reduce, it works well in Haskell or any of those functional languages, Scala. It reads really weird in Go, right? You've got a function with many brackets. It's like a hybrid Lisp that
Mm.
looks just completely out of place. Just use the for loop, please, right?
Mm.
Just use idiomatic Go. And when you use idiomatic Go, the returns are phenomenal. You read Go as though you read your native language like English, right? And if you follow Bob C. Martin's clean code conventions, right? Go code can actually be shorter than Ruby code. Hard to believe, but true, right? Ruby people tend to write variable names that are this long, like 40 characters long, right? Go conventions tend to use very short 3-letter variable names if the scope is very local. If the scope is bigger, of course, the variable names should be longer, right?
Mm.
Do you agree, Jun, Abel?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Agree.
Right.
Okay.
Do we have any other comments or questions?
We do have another one from Donaldson. It's just a
Oh, okay.
comment also.
Also comment. Yeah.
Mm.
how does he manage to write microservices and never use Go routines at all? Okay, some time back, I'm going to pitch myself now. Some time back, I bought into the microservice craze, right? And I wrote microservice on top of microservice on top of microservice, and soon I had a microservice sprawl, 40, 30, 40, 50 microservices running around all over the place. And I lost track of them. Honestly, I lost track of them, right? Then I said to myself, there must be a better way of doing this, right? Instead of writing tiny little microservices and having 40 deployments, right? There must be a better way. So I put on my thinking cap and my favorite language, Go. And Go routines came to the rescue. My idea is very simple. Some people call it a elegant monolith, right? Some people call it a microservice enabled monolith. I call it a microservice ready monolith, but I had a nice marketing name for it, right? I call it the Hakka Roundhouse. Why Hakka Roundhouse? A Hakka Roundhouse is the definition of a monolith. It's a 3-story building. It's round in shape. It's got a hollow center. It's like a donut, right? And 30, 40, 50 families live in it. Yeah? It is the definition of a monolith. But each family has its own 3-story house within that big round house, right? And each family carries on their activities like a different unique family, like a microservice, right? Each family is a Go routine in my Hakka roundhouse. So now I can have 30, 40, 50 Go routines running happily in my single deployment. One monolith, deploy once, and then all the microservice people say, no, that's a very bad way of doing things. It's horrible. No way. Right? I said, wait. The families in the Hakka roundhouse, they have a protocol when they talk to each other. There's a roundhouse chief, right, who arbitrates when there's any families they fight with each other, right? Whenever there's any quarrel, right? So families don't go around going to other people's house willy-nilly without any protocol, right? They have a way to talk to each other. And the way my Go routines talk to each other is they talk to a messaging broker. My messaging broker is Nets. Some people prefer Kafka, some people prefer Nets. It doesn't really matter. Before Nets, I use 0MQ. It's a messaging broker. So all my Go routines talk outside to this messaging broker, and they intercommunicate with this messaging broker, and the roundhouse is a happy family. Now, then those microservice people say, what happens if you need to scale? One family needs to scale bigger than the roundhouse, right? And I said, no worries. Just like in a real Hakka roundhouse, when one family gets too powerful, guess what the chief will do? The chief will say,
Send them out.
son, you're very powerful, influential now. Kick you out of the roundhouse, you start your own roundhouse.
Okay.
You start your own roundhouse, you start your own clan, right? Similarly, I can extract this Go routine, make it a separate external microservice, and still talk to the other families in the roundhouse. They still maintain trade links, right?
Okay.
So now you have 2 deployables instead of 40 deployables, right?
Yeah.
That was the idea. And that is where, a very long answer to address the use of Go routines.
Okay.
But thank you for that question. Yeah.
Well, he
Okay.
did have a follow-up comment about just now you were talking about like why would he have microservices and not use Go routine? So this is his yeah. So just an advertisement. Everybody, please feel free to post comments in YouTube. We'll be able to pick it up and then show it to our panel here. You can ask anything.
Yeah.
You can say anything.
Yeah, but be aware there's a time delay. So
There's a time
yes,
delay.
please go ahead.
Yeah.
Big Shun.
In a way, I think what Donaldson did is exactly the same pattern that you use, right? you sort of externalize some of this scalability out of the Go core code and
to let
let
AWS handle it instead. Yeah.
let it
I
handle it.
don't
I think it's
like
very common these
Lambda.
days. We go cloud native. A lot of people use that.
I don't
do
like Lambda. It uses Node.
it.
It
I think
works.
they're running in. I
Yeah,
think it's
Node
running,
works. Node is a decent language. It's not a great language. It's a decent language. And Lambda's main language is Node.
This is a perfect segue
Node.js.
to the next question. We were talking about Node, right?
Yeah. Oh, what's the advantage of Go over React? Use React, please don't use Go. All right. Use the right tool for the right job. Go is beautiful. I recommend Go 100% for the back end. Please don't write Go front ends. Use something like React and the JavaScript, Node.js, not Node.js, the JavaScript frameworks for the front end, right? I write a bit of front end code myself, and I've given up on frameworks. I like React, I like Angular, but it's too heavyweight for me. I just go to plain old JavaScript, and it works for me. It's really clunky, but it's really simple and it works. Oh, but having said that, anybody want to talk about WebAssembly? One of Go's targets, all right, for those of you who don't know, Go can target many different kinds of processors. For example, I work on a Linux machine, a Linux x86, x64 AMD Linux machine. Some of my customers run Windows. I can effectively cross-compile from my Linux machine and generate an exe that will run on Windows. I can generate a binary that will run on Mac, right? I can generate a binary that will run as a WebAssembly, I don't know what's the language called, module, WebAssembly thing, all right? And with WebAssembly, people have used it to package gigantic C++ games written in C, right, for speed purposes. And they put some JavaScript in front of it, loads the WebAssembly, and bang, you now have a fully fledged game running in your browser. Right? That is the power of Go. It can target WebAssembly. Right? So that's the advantage of Go over React. But if you're writing serious front ends, use the JavaScript frameworks. Don't use Go.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
And Abel will agree also, of course. He uses Node.
Of course.
Yeah. Have you tried writing a front end in Go before?
There's actually somebody trying to do that, right? I remember there was a presentation on one of the Gopher cons that they demoed a front end being written in Go, but if I'm not wrong, it transpiles into Donaldson mentioned it transpiles the Go into a JavaScript. So there's a library out there. Yeah.
Yeah. This
If I'm
is
not wrong.
the WebAssembly line of thinking, right? Transpile into JavaScript, transpile into WebAssembly.
So actually, when it comes out as JavaScript, but I get to write your front end in Go. But as you mentioned, it's the right tool for the right job. If you ask me to write a front end and it needs to do a lot of things, I'd rather just write it in React and do it. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, I played around with React. I played around with Angular. I like both of them. I like React slightly more, but I like raw JavaScript even more.
Wow. Do you use TypeScript? Have you tried?
Very
Oh,
hardcore.
TypeScript
Yeah,
is
very hardcore.
beautiful.
Really?
Yeah, TypeScript is beautiful. If you are coming in from the Node.js world, right, and you like Go, please use TypeScript.
I see.
Please use TypeScript because it is a
Xiuwin's two loves.
it is a semi pseudo type safe Node.js. It is
It
only
is
type safe
type
at
safe
compile time.
Node.js.
Okay, it's only type safe at compile time because it
Right.
transpiles in the Node.js at runtime. All bets are
JavaScript
off.
comes out. Yeah.
But the guarantees for Go extend into runtime. Yeah.
Well, okay, just one question. I haven't really tried it, but does the guarantees extend into generics? Like if you write a generic, it can be anything, right? Any type. Does it also like give you
Yes.
the guarantee all the way in the runtime?
Yes. Yes.
Oh,
All right. Any language gives you tools to shoot yourself in the foot, right? In Go, the
that's one way to
previous
put it.
tool that we shoot ourselves in the foot was interface open brace close brace, the so-called empty interface.
That is also generics, in a way.
Yeah, people tend to overuse the empty interface, right?
And then type assert all over the place, right?
And type
Type
assert all
assert
over the
without error
place,
checking. Wow, that's a wow.
and you shoot yourself in
From
the
the
foot,
start.
right?
Yes.
So generic has a similar thing. It's called those three letters, ANY, any, right? Any is equivalent to the empty interface open brace close brace, right? As with anything, use it with some thinking, please. Use it in moderation, right? The reason why many people use the empty interface, I can tell you a use case of mine. JavaScript, not JavaScript, JSON. Yeah. JSON is a very popular serializing format. You can't get away from JSON, right? Passing JSON in Go is nasty. Passing JSON in Go is not a pleasant thing, right? So many people get around the problems of passing JSON in Go using the empty interface, and there are trade-offs, right? JSON is best passed using Node. It's the best tool for the best job. JSON and Node.js, they are buddies, right? It's just one line. They're very, very close. They're buddies. They're bit partners. JSON and Go, not so close. You can make it work. It's a bit clunky, right? But when you make it work, it becomes type safe. It becomes extremely performant when you make it work, right? So if you can avoid the temptation of empty interface or avoid the temptation of using the ANY type, right? You will reap the benefits, and the benefits will come for many years down the road. I have a system in production written in Go 2014, 2015, right?
Wow, that
Still,
was Go 1. What? Yeah.
yeah. This really early Go, right?
Oh.
Still running stably. And I wrote that because I, I I may have told you I come from the Ruby environment. Rails was my framework, and I was active in the back end. So I wanted to write back end code in Ruby, and that it turns out to be a mistake. Not because of Ruby the language itself. The Ruby the language itself is I like the language. I like it. Ruby suffers from the same problem as NPM, the Node Package Manager, right? People put in
Well,
sometimes
that's a whole
garbage
discussion in
libraries.
itself, man.
Sometimes people put in garbage libraries in there, right? The
Left
libraries
pad.
I use leak resources, and I had to
Ah.
reboot and restart my servers every Sunday night automatically, 3 a.m. in the morning, that kind of thing, right? So I got fed up with it, and I said, hey, there's this new language which I quite like. Let me rewrite my Ruby service in Go. Those Go routines run for months until I have to upgrade the code and uses a fraction of the resources, right? It's just phenomenal. It's just phenomenal. What's your
Which
experience
reminds me
like?
of Donaldson's comment.
Uh-huh.
So just need to share. Did you write it in, because like for example, you if you move from Ruby into Go, right? One thing you are very tempted to do is start naming stuff according to what you know. Like,
Yes.
so did it happen to
Initially,
you like personally?
initially I wrote Go like Ruby. Initially, it
Yeah, it
took me a few
happens.
months, maybe a bit longer, to rewrite my thinking. And this happens. This is natural. It happens from anybody, right? I now manage TypeScript developers coming in from the Node.js world. I manage Go developers, and I see Go written like TypeScript, right? I see Go written like TypeScript, right? And it grates on my nerves, right? Uh, and I see Go written framework style, like Ruby on Rails style or Spring Boot style, right? And they have model view controller everywhere, right? You see that kind of code, model view
Yeah.
controller. I have a model or a service or whatever all over the place.
But that's
And
one thing, right? They don't really tell you like you're not supposed to use model controller. Go doesn't say like you're supposed to follow this, you're supposed to follow that.
it is fine. You can
Yeah.
use the model view controller framework. There's nothing wrong with it. But please name your stuff properly. Just don't call your service service and don't call your model model, please.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think that's
when
what a struggle. Yeah, when
it's
you come from
culture.
when you come from like me, I come from an object-oriented world. That change in paradigm is actually quite huge. Yeah,
It
if
is.
you're going to structure how your Go code should be structured, right? Then you say, where should I write the service? Where should I write the objects that will pass the data? Where do you handle all these things? It's a
So you
relearning
handle all the
altogether.
logic, yeah.
Yeah, then the exception handling is very different, right? So it's like,
Yeah.
where do
Errors in Go.
you try catch? So none
There's
of
no
that
try
happens.
catch.
Yeah, so
There
you
is
have
no
to
try
relearn
catch.
a few things are like wow like that one. Okay, how do you pass the chain up?
Yeah.
It doesn't work
So
that way. Yeah,
what I'm an engineering manager right now, and what I tell my developers is this: I give you the freedom to write your code the way you feel it should be written, right? If you want to write it in an MV model view controller style, I'm not going to stop you. I may have a different opinion, but you are going to write this code. You need to explain it to your teammates. You need to maintain this code. I'm just the engineering manager, and I'm supposed to build you up to be better developers. But please name your stuff correctly. I'm okay if you use MVC or use model view controller, but please don't call the model. Call it something more descriptive. Yeah,
okay.
right.
There's one more question from Jeffrey. I think.
Okay,
Yeah,
go
it's
ahead.
more maybe more a comment, not really. Yeah.
Go's Marketplace in Malaysia. By the way, a little fact about it gets a bit personal, but this is a fireside chat after all. I'm Malaysian. I've been working in Singapore. I'm still Malaysian. I'm a Singapore permanently resident in Singapore, but I'm a Malaysian, and I love Penang food because I'm from Penang, right?
Oh,
And
nice.
because of this pandemic, I'm hoping to go back to Malaysia.
Now open already.
Soon.
First
Yeah.
April, according to the Prime Minister. But the mind share of Go, depending on where you speak, I've got engineers working from Ukraine right now. I don't know how they can do it. Their country's in a state of war, right? And they, you're from Penang as well. And I've got Go developers from Ukraine, but apparently the de facto language in Ukraine is Node.js, right? In fact, I think the de facto or one of the most popular languages in the world today is Node.js, aside from Java, right, for the backend and enterprise. So the mindshare varies from country to country, but even for the company I currently work for, by the way, that company is ended. They use two primary languages, TypeScript and Go. TypeScript, because Node.js on its own is a disaster waiting to happen. If you write big systems in raw Node.js, it's a disaster waiting to happen. It's trying to write a complex system with Visual Basic, for those of you old enough to understand what Visual Basic is, right? Or writing a super duper complex environment in raw PHP, right? Without any frameworks. It's a disaster waiting to happen. So Microsoft, people love to hate Microsoft, came out with this language known as TypeScript, which made Node.js type safe at compile time. So it catches most of the problems at compile time. It transpiles to a type safe, transpile at compile time to Node.js, right? And if you go and fiddle around with that Node.js and do import other Node.js libraries, all bets are off, right? But if you keep everything in type safe, you have some guarantees of type safety, right? However, it transpiles to Node.js. It is single-threaded. Global environment lock, global whatever, variable lock, I can't remember. Can you remember the term? There's a global lock somewhere. Anyway, it's a single-threaded thing. Beautiful for I/O multiplexing because I/O takes up very little CPU. The moment you have a CPU-intensive job, TypeScript, Node.js dies. Right? Go, one single executable. If you launch it onto a machine with 64 cores, it will happily use up all 64 cores, right? No single-threaded nonsense like Node.js. For that reason, more and more companies are moving away from Node.js, TypeScript to Go. But that is the journey. Node.js, put some handcuffs onto the people, make it type safe, become TypeScript. From TypeScript, the transition to Go is relatively painless. Yeah. So that's the strategy. Yeah, global interpreter lock. That's right. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks for the thing.
You know, sometimes we are talking up here, chit-chatting, the brain goes blank, right?
Yeah. The words just don't come in, right?
Yeah. Plus, I'm an old man, so my memory is deteriorating.
We are all getting old.
Yeah, but excuse me, different orders of generation here.
Okay. But just a point to Jeffrey, I think it is true, but I think Singapore, depending on which industry or maybe the company you work for, I think Go mindshare here also needs a little bit more coaching, I guess. Yeah, I mean there's a sizable community here, yes. But I think compared to maybe other languages, we can still do a bit of catch up. Yeah.
In terms of jobs, I think companies are afraid to hire for Go because there are not too many. There are not very, very many Go developers around, right? There are loads and loads of Java developers around, loads and loads of TypeScript / Node.js
JavaScript,
developers
yeah.
around, right? JavaScript developers around. But they are, but don't make the mistake. Go is not a niche language. Go is a mainstream language that is very, very usable. Kubernetes is written in Go. Docker is written in Go. If you think you only see newer languages as Go use, if you're working on a new project, that's true. That's true, right? If you're working on a greenfield or new project, more companies are willing to take the risk and use Go. The same can be said for Scala. When Twitter moved from Ruby to Scala, because Ruby just could not scale, right? They couldn't find Scala developers, right? It's tough. And I think the Scala developer market is much, much smaller than Go.
Yeah,
at
I
this
agree.
stage.
So hard, it's even harder to find.
Even harder to find.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
So okay lah. I mean, the point is that we will get there lah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maintaining or updating old projects. That's true. Legacy code is not a bad name. It's not a bad word. Legacy code, somebody once told me, goes to work every night and earns the organization its cash cow money. That's legacy
Wow,
code.
the silent worker.
Yes, right. But nobody dares to touch it because you touch it, it falls down on you.
Yeah.
Right. How are we doing for time? Yeah.
We're almost 8. Yeah. We've
Now, this is not a very interactive discussion. There is this thing called Gather Town. You want to tell us more about it, Abel?
yeah.
Okay, wait. I still have one more thing coming from
let's address the comments and questions.
So it's just
And
a
let's wait
quick
a while.
comment. I think
Okay.
for
Okay.
All right. 1.18. All right. I'll describe my development environment a little bit. I got fed up by, I really got tired of creating my development environment every time I change my computer, every time I change my laptop. I really got sick and tired of it. I didn't want to reinstall Go. I didn't want to reinstall my editor. By the way, my editor is Vim. I don't like VS Code. I like good
Wow.
old Vim, right?
I say you're super hardcore already. Yeah.
I'm hardcore. Anyway, I got really fed up of reinstalling my environment every time I change my computer. So what did I
Okay.
do? I put Go into a Docker container without any credentials, of course. Credentials I can load later. I put Go into my Docker container, but not only did I put Go in my Docker container, I put Vim in my Docker container. I put Git into my Docker container. And when I downloaded my Docker container, it's a huge container, by the way, huge image. It's a 1 gigabyte image. It's got it's got Vim, it's got Docker, it's got, I think it's got Ansible in it as well. It is my Ansible is Python, and Python is huge. Anyway, I updated my Go version in my Docker container. The reason why I put it in the Docker container is you can go to Sewin/Go. You can download it for yourself if you want to, right? Is every time I change my computer, I just pull that image down from Docker Hub, and bang, my environment is there, ready for me. I pull my GitHub code or my code from GitHub. I'm ready to code. I can set up a new environment in like 5 seconds, right? Assuming that it downloads that quickly, 1 gigabyte worth of image. Now, I updated my image from 1.17 to 1.18. I went through the README. I played around with generics. I cursed at it for a while. Then I said, hey, this makes sense, right? And I have filed it at the back of my head. As I mentioned earlier in the talk, I'm not going to use it immediately until I find a proper use case for it. My proper use case for it, if and when I come around to it, will be a priority set, not a priority queue, a generic priority set. And this will be used in production if and when the need arises.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, for me, no plans yet. Yeah. Haven't even started getting hands dirty on 1.18. So can try out first. Yeah. So early days for me. Yes.
Yeah. But I think I mentioned it earlier in the talk. I upgraded from 1.17 to 1.18. All my pre 1.18 code, I think I've got code in there that was coming from 1.8 or 1.7, right?
Wow.
Pretty old code, right? Runs flawlessly, no issues at all, right? The only difference is some of them don't have Go mod. Remember Go mod?
Oh,
Go modules, it was around 1.15, right?
15.
Around there, right? Some of them had this hard-coded Go Go source, whatever tree. It has to be in the Go path, right? Go mod changed all of that after 1.15. Right? As and when they added new features, I just adapted. But my 1.8 code works perfectly in my 1.18 container. No issues at all, right?
Okay. Looks like one comment from Jeffrey. Looks like you have more in common with him than Penang hometown.
Yeah,
Kat
so from the
Kelang
same hometown. Yeah, I think y'all come from the same school.
Mesti lah.
Okay,
Boss di
so
Penang lang.
Yeah.
advertisement for the next part. So we have this Gather Town link in Meetup. So everyone just feel free to join us in the Gather Town. So we can just walk around and then talk to each other there. So that will
Have
be
you
our
posted
closing.
the link?
Yeah.
Have you posted
Yeah,
the link?
we'll be
Yet?
posting the link in here
You-
soon.
Are you posting or shall I post?
Oh yeah, can you post for me? Okay, so thank you, Siwin, for joining us. So
And see
Siwin will
you
be
in
joining us
Gathertown.
in Gather Town, right? Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
So
see you in
anybody, if
Gathertown.
you all want to talk to us or you all talk to Siwin, feel free to join us in Gather Town. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
So that will be the end for today. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. See you there in Gather Town and have more interactive chatting. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.